Hello and welcome back to our third webinar from Ballantyne Building Solutions, talking about our IntegraSpec ICF building system. So today we're going to talk about the finer details of IntegraSpec ICF, some of its unique applications and its design features. So if we could start off by just talking a little bit about ICF and its origins and its DNA. So IntegraSpec was spawned from a group of guys that had worked in the ICF industry for a long time, and between them they had over 75 years of experience in the building and ICF construction industry. And the products they were working with them, they really liked ICF, but they could see certain limitations. So they put their heads together with structural engineers and they came up with a new product, an independent panel system. So then they removed a lot of the downfalls and negative points of the ICF products they were working with. IntegraSpec is truly the toughest ICF in the industry today. The system was developed to address and eliminate many of the problems that most ICF systems encounter: blowouts, form unit lift, flotation, bulging, wall compression, and pouring speed and wavy walls. All of these problems were eliminated with the design of IntegraSpec. Many of those terms you're maybe not familiar with, but we'll explain some of those problems that may occur with other systems and which have been dealt with IntegraSpec design. One of the design innovations that IntegraSpec came up with to stop form lift is the interlocking web design. So whenever the webs join together, there's a physical interlock, and that little design feature there, which is patented, does away with form lift. So that's the tendency of when you're filling the formwork or your ICF with concrete, there can be a tendency for that to float or to lift. And with this design feature, that's been eliminated. One other design feature that's been eliminated is form compaction. So it's almost the opposite to form lift, but with the heavy concrete going into your formwork, sometimes other systems can have a little bit of form compaction. To counter that, IntegraSpec inserts, which are molded into the panel, have a solid connection between them, so you have a continuous spine every 8 inches, which prevents the forms from compacting. On a building site, if you have form compaction, it will mean sometimes that your window heads will reduce from where they were set, which we don't have that problem. If we set our window heads at their correct height, that's where they stay. So if you can imagine trying to compensate for that in some other system, where you have to maybe set your window heads maybe an inch or so higher than you really want them to be because you're going to have form compaction. We don't have that problem. We set them where we want them, and that's where they stay. Again, with our insert, we use high impact polystyrene as the plastic. So this product is chemically the same as the expanded polystyrene. So whenever they're molded together, they form a really strong chemical bond around that product. In other systems and products, they will tend to use polypropylene or polycarbonate, I think. So rather than having a chemical bond, those inserts that are molded into other systems can actually create a weak spot for the potential for bursting. This is why IntegraSpec is genuinely the toughest ICF on the market, and we are the only ICF on the market that use high impact polystyrene for our inserts and webs. IntegraSpec has a complete range of products to suit all our needs. So our standard panel as we've seen before, is 4 foot by 1 foot. With that, we can build practically anything. But to make life a little bit easier, they have developed a corner panel, which makes laying out corners really simple and fast. And we have a 6-inch corner, and we also have a commercial 8-inch corner for the larger, more demanding projects. As well as that, we have Integra bucks, which form our cavity closers for around windows and openings. We have headers for closing the heading above openings as well. We have specialist Santa Fe bucks and headers, which provide a tapered reveal to your window to allow more light in. And we have a range of webs which go from 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 and 12-inch webs to allow you to build various thickness of concrete wall. And also we have a specialist H-clip which allows us to join our webs together. So we can build really wide walls if necessary. So it's a very, very versatile system. We can also use the H-clip when we can pour the foundation and the footing together. As mentioned in one of our earlier webinars, our standard panels are flippable and reversible, and we have a dovetailed design on the inside, which provides a really good key for the concrete. So with the exothermic reaction with the concrete as it cures and it shrinks, it really bonds into these dovetails. Now I can show you a concrete core that we have that really illustrates that. Here we have a concrete core that was taken from one of our 8-inch concrete walls with the standard panels either side. And it was taken, you can see it cuts right through where the web and the inserts are. So you can see the furring strip here. And that's where we can screw a screw to if we need to for screwing plasterboard. You can also see the dovetail in this very clearly, where the concrete really does go in there into the dovetails and takes a really good bond. So you've got a super strong airtight building. Also in this section, you can just see a couple of the rebar that were in there to provide the adequate strength, structural strength. And you can see that it's really well consolidated concrete as well. When we build our walls, we obviously need to consider flooring, and IntegraSpec is extremely versatile. It interfaces with almost any kind of flooring you desire. Most of the buildings that we build use precast concrete floor slabs. Although that is not the only system we can use engineered timber, standard wooden joists, block and beam. Almost any flooring system will integrate very well with IntegraSpec ICF. One of the unique characteristics of IntegraSpec, because it's an independent panel system, we can offer an exposed concrete face. This is where we have insulation on only one side, and on the other side the concrete face is exposed. This is maybe useful for applications where non-combustible material has to be exposed, for example in lift shafts. And you'll see on the illustrations that we have how this is achieved, where we use the standard panel on one side and then we use these inserts on their own, which are slotted over the webs. And then there is plywood, which is ripped into 8-inch strips, and then they're held in place with the insert. And then once the concrete is poured and cured, the little black plastic part here is broken off and the plywood can be removed, leaving the exposed concrete face. That's a very unique feature of IntegraSpec, again showing its versatility. So just want to talk a little bit more about our standard panel and point out a few more of the design features. So with this panel we have maximum design flexibility. So we do not require starter rails or kickers on the footings. You just simply set it down, put in your webs and carry on building it, and use the bracing system to support it during the pour. So these are perfectly sized to form standard ceiling heights, such as, because it's a 1 foot high, so you can easily form 8 foot, 9 foot or 10 foot high ceilings, or even higher. Can be easily, if we need to achieve a ceiling height that's not exactly in 1 foot increments, we can easily run this panel through a saw on site to achieve whatever desired height we need for our panels. Again, the offcut that's used, provided it's less than half, we can use that on the other side. There's very little waste. Also on the product, to speed build, it has 1 inch cut lines that are marked on the product. So whenever it comes to assembling a wall that is a specific length, and we need to cut the panel, we have these cut lines. That enables us to easily decide where we need to cut so that we continue the interlocking on the next level, on the next course of blocks. And because the panel is flippable and reversible, whenever we reach for one on the site, we don't have to think about which way does this go. We can just easily set it in place and carry on building, so it reduces our time in assembly. And again, there's much less waste. Even a small cut of this can be reused in the wall, and very little of it needs to be thrown away. And of course, one of the other great advantages of the independent panel system is that it ships flat, so there's a lot less transport costs. Some of our specialist applications have already talked about exposed concrete face, but basements, swimming pools, retaining walls, even walls with built-in pilasters, walls with really high rebar content. If you happen to be in a seismic area, we can assemble one side of the wall with the webs, and we can then slide on the other side after all the rebar is tied. We can also vary the thickness of a wall to suit any building from 4 up to 12 with our standard webs, and even wider with our H-clip, which we can join together. And again, curved walls. We can achieve curved walls reasonably easy with IntegraSpec ICF. So thank you once again for taking the time to listen to our webinar and watch it. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you'll join us for our 4th and final webinar in this series, where we'll be talking about some of the environmental benefits for builders, and looking at some of our projects that have already been completed.